Welcome to the Presence Podcast. My name is Chris, and this is my wife, Susie. And together we're pastors at a brand new church, Presence Church, launching in the fall of 2025.
We're so excited to share with you the stories from our core group here at Presence Church over the next coming weeks.
I hope that you enjoy these conversations, and I hope that their stories resonate with you in the same way that they've resonated with us so much. Enjoy these conversations. Jesus, thank you for all that you have done in and through the people sitting around this table. It's been such a fun journey. Grateful for you and for what you're doing amongst us. Pray that our stories today, as we share them, God would draw people closer to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you guys for joining us today. Most of the time, both of you are behind the camera. How does it feel to be on the front side?
Feels weird.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
It's wonderful. So we have Abby, our super producer, and Xavier, our dynamic. Well, I was going to say dynamic director because I was going for alliteration. But yeah, super excited. So our daughter, beautiful daughter, the one and only.
The one, the only.
The one, the only. We had spare sons. We did not have any spare daughters. You're our only one. That is true. And yeah.
Perfection, so.
Yeah. Why would you go re-up with another daughter? We didn't.
Just like her dad.
Yeah.
I give the compliment and he gets the credit?
Yeah.
What is that about?
Love it.
I see how this is going to go.
I love it. It's going to be a long half hour for you. But and then, Xavier, it's good to have you along with us. We've been in this season of God inviting us into starting a new church.
Yeah.
And so in getting to share some of our stories along the way, I think there are going to be things from each of your stories that really resonate with people in a way that they probably can't resonate with, what's the saying these days, boomers? We're a couple of boomers over here on this side of the table, even though we're Gen Xers, we're not boomers. But yeah, let's start, Xavier, with you. Just share a little bit of your faith journey and how you got here today.
For sure. Yeah, I've grown up at church, been at the same campus other than a couple years of being away for college, but been there for 17 years. And, I feel right before middle school was starting to feel like that calling for ministry and seeing others start speaking that as well, right? I kind of had that like internal feeling from the Holy Spirit, but then I was also getting that external affirmation from people and calling me just to higher standards of leadership and seeing a future in ministry. And so as I continued in middle school and high school with serving, especially with kids, kind of just started thinking about my future, and then got to do an amazing internship in high school. And that's really when it went from me saying, oh, I want to be a pastor, to realizing 100 other things that are also done at a church, right? And even the small things of, clearly I didn't think the chairs magically set themselves up, but being the one to do it, being the one to do that, I was like, there's so much that goes into this, right? We're not all just showing, I'm just showing up, which is awesome, on a Wednesday night to receive, but my leaders, they're pouring in the whole week, right? And so really changed my mindset from wanting to be a pastor to wanting to work in ministry and really feeling that calling. And so, it's really been cool to get to come back during the pandemic. I thought I would kind of stay up in Canada for school after, but then COVID brought me back home, and just continuing to get to grow over the last few years. And especially in this last year, feeling this longing, not just for something new, but kind of struggling with this almost identity lag of like, people I still knew saw me as who they first met me as, right? And so they saw me as like 4th grade or 5th grade Xavier, or some of my students even, they saw me as intern Xavier. And so I felt like there was this like kind of internal conflict of like, I'm not though, right? Like, it's not surprising that I'm growing a beard. I've been growing a beard for many years now, right? Like, there's things like that. And so I think especially in this last year, I started really praying about like, God, I'm not going to just choose to go somewhere else. Like, I feel like you've called me here, so you need to make it really clear if you're calling me away, And I was talking to my sister. I was visiting her in Texas, and she and I were just discussing work, and I was like, I wouldn't leave unless someone really like reached out and asked me to pray about that. And then 2 hours later, I got a phone call from an old worship pastor that I don't know if we've ever called one another, but we haven't talked to each other in a few years. And so I ignored it because I was like, why is he calling me, obviously? And we got to talking, and he told me about this opportunity up in Washington for a youth pastor position. And so started praying about that because I was like, man, God, you are funny, right? Like, I just said I'm not going to leave unless someone reaches out, and then someone reaches out. And so as this year has gone on, I just kind of started praying about that, and it really helped open me up to the idea of just because I'm comfortable and I've been here for so long doesn't mean this is where I'm going to be and doing my ministry always, right here in Fremont, here at this campus. And so really cool just as the year went on, and got to talking with you guys, and you guys let me know about Presence Church. And at first I was like, cool, have fun. I remember sitting with you, and you just kind of were like, what are your thoughts? And I'm like, excited for you guys, because that's all I was thinking, because I'm like, I'm not part of this, like, right? Like, it had nothing to do with whether there was an invitation or not, but I just was like, this isn't for me. Even as we kind of started talking about it, we were talking one day, and she brought up Presence Church and you guys, and I was like, yeah, and she had mentioned how she might be interested in going, and I was like, it's gonna be weird to go to different churches, right? Like, it even crossed my mind, like,
just for clarity, you guys are dating.
Yes.
So
yes.
There is a relational connection, which we'll dig into in a few minutes. I think is a super fun conversation about how you discern amongst a relationship like dating. How do you discern, independent of one another, what you do in the next steps? But sorry, just go ahead.
No, you're good. And so just we were talking, and I was like, cool, like, have fun, but this can be weird to be at different places, right? And like, that didn't even cross my mind of, I'll go. And just kind of started praying for a lot of things from God, of clarity in my life and with church and with work and school and just everything going on. And then he just answered kind of all at the same time, and it was like, okay, you're going to move in with your grandparents, right? And here's how I'm going to financially help provide, right? And you need a lot of rest, or you're going to burn out and probably never want to do ministry again. Okay, we're going to have you work less, right? And have your hours cut, right? Like, and there's just so many things that happened that I was like, God, you are so good. This is not how I was asking for rest, was to, have less time necessarily dedicated towards this work and have less money and kind of be stressed about that. But he provided through that, which was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Abby, share a little bit about your journey of faith, growing up in a home where your parents made you go to church every Sunday.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
Worst parents ever. I'm going to get clipped on the internet and canceled. No, it was really good. I definitely, like, growing up in the church was, like, wonderful, and I really enjoyed it. I remember, like, running around the pews, and I'd get spanking and then just kind of laugh because it did nothing to me. I just kind of kept doing it. Discipline did not work on me.
That kind of discipline. Different kinds of discipline.
Yeah, that's true.
Did work. In fact, when you were, like, 2, that story that you just referenced was the last time that you were spanked. Because it did not work. We had to shift gears.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, you're stubborn.
It's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Where she gets that.
Yeah, definitely from mom.
I don't know.
No comment.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, but I just growing up in the church was, like, to me, it was freeing, but it was also, like, I was in an environment where, like, growth was there if I wanted it, and I could grab it. And so, like, when I got to, like, my teen years, I couldn't even tell you what happened. I just fell into anxiety and depression, and that is just what happened. And I think definitely part of it was spiritual, and some of it was, the enemy trying to take hold of my life and take hold of the calling that God has put on my life and try to take me down before I ever even knew what it was like to have a relationship with Jesus. And so I was in this season of, like, all right, I don't, like, it's either, like, there's 2 ways out here at this point where I was, like, there's, like, this struggle where I'm, like, I don't want to be here anymore. And there's, like, there's 2 choices. There's, like, try to figure this way out with Jesus and with my parents, or, like, it's the latter, what the enemy wants. And so I had this, like, struggle, and then I found myself, like, at church with, like, our family, and just, like, I hated it. People would ask me, they're like, oh, how are you doing? And I was like, oh, man, I don't like this at all. I was like, but I kept showing up, even though I didn't want to be there, because, my parents you guys kept making me come. And so, it was honestly, like, the greatest blessing of my life. And so I've always loved music, and so I fell in love with Jesus all over again, just through worship and through getting to like start with music. And the beautiful thing is, like, I sucked at the time, but the one lesson I got out of that, just there's like multi-layered of just like finding Jesus through that. But one thing that like really stuck out to me too, of like the leaders in my life at that time, like they kept showing up. Even though I didn't deserve it, they kept showing up. Even though I was terrible, I treated people terrible, I'm sure. Like, I could probably go back and they'd be like, yeah, no, like, but that's okay. But they, like, I was terrible, but they still put me on stage because they knew that's what I needed to get a relationship with Jesus. They did whatever it took to get me there, to get me to the table, to get me to a relationship with Jesus.
So they saw in you a passion for music, a desire.
Exactly.
They saw a potential in you, and were willing to invest in spite of the flaws and the foibles and the parts of your personality that maybe at the time were not as enjoyable as other parts of your personality. I think that's really cool, because oftentimes we, as leaders, when we're trying to raise up other leaders, we set the bar really high. We want somebody that's been doing that thing, whether it's leading student ministry or leading worship or pastoring a church. We want the person who's been doing it for 40 years, who's made all the mistakes in the past and is not going to make any in the future, and is 28 years old, and that person just doesn't exist. The math doesn't work, right? When really what we need to be looking for in the relationships we have is a willingness. It's a desire. It's a passion for something. And that could be teaching, it could be building community, it could be music, it could be prayer, it could be anything and everything. But just a willingness, like that is the opening we should be looking for. And I've definitely seen that in both of you. Talk a little bit, Abby, about how you processed through discerning that God wanted you to come with us to plant this church, because you are officially an adult. You're, very welcome to do whatever you wish to do at this point. But even in the nuance and complexity of navigating this while in a relationship with someone who wasn't sure what they were going to do.
Yeah, it's definitely hard with a ball and chain. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's definitely hard. Like I have often in my life found myself in what I feel is unique situations. Like in middle school can look back. This is gonna relate, I promise. It's gonna used to hang out with like the teachers and like older people, and so like I've always been in like situations in my life where I can look back and I'm like, I'm not like the most normal person in the world. And so especially like becoming an adult and then like being faced with so many different like decisions and God putting these callings on my life, and I feel like calling me to higher positions in leadership, I'm like, crap, I don't know if I'm like ready for this. And God has been so faithful. He's like, you're not, but I'm gonna make you ready when it's time, and pushing me to go do the next thing. And so I was at Echo Fremont, and I've been under can I say his name?
Yeah.
I don't know why that mattered. I don't know. I've been under with Billy Honecker for like 3 years working alongside him. So he's kind of been like my
mentor.
Yeah, mentor, but also just like my safety shield. Like, he's taught me like a lot of what I know, and just like all the different things. Like if I needed something, I would go to Billy. Like if like I needed advice, I would go to Billy. Like he just like taught me, he led me through so many different seasons of life, and he's seen a lot of different parts of me and like my personality, and he's seen me grow. And so as I was like kind of faced with this, and I've been working with him, I was faced with like a decision of like, shoot, like I could go down south with my parents, and I could like plant this church, like, or like, I think there's definitely that element of like, I could stay up in my safety net up at like, with Echo and a place I've called home for 7 years. It was really formative to who I am like as a person today. I could stay in that safety net, but as I prayed more, I felt like I needed to go with you guys. But I had a similar reaction to Xavier, as like you guys told us like you guys are planting a church, and I had a similar reaction at the time. I was like, have fun. Like, I didn't even cross my mind to go all that much. Like I was like, yeah, that's cool. And I was like super excited for you guys like definitely like loved it. And even just, I don't even remember when or where we had the conversation, but you were sharing with me one day a little bit more vision about what Presence Church is going to look like. And I just remember I was sitting there on that day, and almost word for word, everything that you had said to me was like almost word for word everything that the Lord, I felt like, had been speaking to me in that season. I was sitting there with this vision that I felt like, and like this heart for worship that I felt like the Lord gave for me, but it didn't feel like for the current house that I was in. It was what he was speaking to me. And so I was kind of sitting there like, God, what am I supposed to do with all of this stuff for worship that I don't feel like is for this house? Like, where am I going to go? And then Presence Church shows up, and I'm like, I didn't even think about it. And then you said everything like word for word. And so I started thinking about like, okay, God, what do you have for me? Am I staying here? Am I going? Like, what's the, and him and I just naturally like would bring up, I was just every once in a while, like kind of mention it like, oh, that's cool, and kind of dip our toe in that conversation a little bit. And somewhere along the line, we started, to decide that we, I think definitely I did before him, like, hey, I'm going to start praying about like maybe going to Presence Church. And we prayed individually, but also we prayed together. We didn't tell each other, hey, I'm leaning this way, hey, I'm leaning that way. I might have once or twice, but we did our best to like keep that like separate until we both were like, okay, we've reached a decision that we are, this is our decision. But we would sit together, we would pray together. God, would you give us discernment? Would you lead us in this decision, both individually but as a couple? What you have for us. And so God kind of began to like speak to us like individually, but also like together of like, okay, this is what he has for us. And he had like different things like happening to him, and I had a bunch of different stuff like going on in my life where I was like, it's all lining up. And like, even like maybe this is a wrong term, but like what I would call like holy discontentment with my current situation for future stuff, like God speaking this that doesn't fit here, but it's going to fit in the next house that he has for us. And so just trying to like, it's a season of growth of like, he has this stuff for me, like, but I need to write it down for future because it's not for now, but it's for later.
Yeah, there are these moments in life where we feel called to something new. And it doesn't mean the thing that we've been doing or the place that we have been is unhealthy or unwanted, right? But it's just a shift. And, we went through a similar thing 10 or so years ago when Jesus asked us to leave the faith tradition we grew up in and go somewhere. It was a bit of an Abraham style moment where God, in the book of Genesis, he tells Abraham, start walking. I'll make of you a great nation, but start walking. Like, I have a great thing ahead for you, but I'm not going to tell you what or where or when. Just start walking. And so this guy who had never heard from God before, he just starts walking. And we sort of felt that about 10 years ago, and it was a just start walking moment. And God has led us through this beautiful journey where we needed a season to just rest and recuperate, kind of similar to what you talked about early in our conversation, and then led us to those other pastures that he wanted for us. And I think there's something really beautiful ahead for this group, taking all of the amazing investments that others have made in us along the way and doing this new thing that God has called us to. So you guys dating and are kind of discerning. It sounds like a little bit together, a little bit on your own.
Yeah.
Was there one moment where like you looked at each other and were like, I know?
I'm going to decline to answer because I'm the goldfish here, so I don't fully remember. I really don't.
That's a good point. We were driving one day and talking about it, and we both were just saying how we had been praying about this decision and like, is this the right place? And more so, we kind of both were like, yeah, I think so. This is the right thing to do, but now the timing of it. When do we step away from our current community and church family to prepare for this? And, I'm thinking in my head, and I'm like, December of this year, right? December of 2024 makes sense. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell her that. But like, we're kind of both kind of waiting and seeing who's going to say it first, right? So like make sure like these are our own.
We were playing chicken.
Huh?
We were playing chicken.
Little
And then
chicken.
she goes and she's like, I was thinking the end of this year. And I was like, no, don't steal my answer. This is not fair. I was thinking the end of this year. I really feel like that's what God's told me. And it just made sense, like the timing of it all. And so it was really cool to get to pray about it with one another, and for that discernment, just for both of us to ask God, like, please speak to us in the way you speak to us and make it so clear. But then also, and get to do that in partnership, and then separately, and to get to listen and hear from God, and then get to have those conversations together. Yeah.
Does the goldfish remember it that way?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That seems about right.
you jogged my memory.
You know, one of the things that has come from our prayer time and our discernment has been a desire to really make an impact on your generation. And technically speaking, I think you're sort of right on the cusp, sort of toward the tail end of Gen Z. But you're both Gen Z, right? Gen
My
Alpha.
previous students refuse to believe I'm Gen Z. They also will call me a boomer,
yeah.
or a little more realistically, try saying millennial, which I still fight them about.
But isn't that just the way of students? Like
100%. I remember being that annoying student that was calling my 20-year-old leaders old,
Yeah.
and now I'm 25, and I'm like, I'm not old, guys. Wait, stop it.
Yeah. So we feel like so much hope for Gen Z, Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
There is an openness to faith and the things, the spiritual realities of our existence. Talk a little bit about what it means to you to make an impact in that generation. I mean, your passion is student ministry, so it's middle school, high school. Talk a little bit about some of that passion that you carry.
Yeah. Like, I know for me, you know, my parents are divorced. They got divorced at the end of my junior year of high school. But they should have gone divorced way before that. And so growing up in just kind of like a chaotic household, church was my safe place, right? Like that, the leaders that God blessed me with and put in my life to just love on me and show me God's love, I was like, man, I want to be this for other people. And so especially students, like I recognized in middle school, I'd accepted Christ before that, and that was fully my decision. But middle school, I really recognized as like, this faith was really mine, right? Like I was still nagging to go, and I was like, Mom, we need to go. We have to be there on Sunday and Saturday, right? But like it really became mine because also on a Wednesday, right? Like outside of our normal rhythm of years. And I recognize that that's the point where you don't have to go, right? If you've grown up, like, yeah, parents might still force you, but you really have to make that decision to actually go in that midweek service, right? Mm-hmm. And to actually pay attention in the main service on a Sunday. And just seeing the students and Gen Z is very open to spirituality, right? And crystals are a big thing. And, you know, the unseriousness around Ouija boards or all these other things, all these spiritual things that people don't understand. If you say, oh, these open doorways, they're like, you're crazy. And it's like, well, actually, no, right? And so I think seeing that and having that passion for them, because it's like, you don't know what you don't know, but let me help you know this, right? Mm-hmm. And as you are looking for something, let me point you towards something that is good, that is faithful, and help you find God's love, right? Because it is hard seeing the students and the grief that they're facing, right? And being constantly connected is amazing, and technology is awesome, but it's also hard because, you know, it's a blessing to get to see what's going on in LA so we can pray for it. Not what's happening, of course, but so we can pray for it, right? And like really be able to feel it a bit more. But there also can be like a curse in that, right? Of like, oh my gosh, like you're just kind of constantly like next door, right? You're constantly surrounded by like this tragedy or the worst thing that's going on. And the students definitely are facing that, right? And so that's really where a lot of my passion is like, man, I want to create this space for you where you don't have these distractions, where you can escape from these distractions of home, of the world, of school, and just come and be in a good, healthy community and be fed physically and get food, but be fed spiritually too, and be in community and know your Savior.
Yeah, 60 to 70 years ago, you only heard about the news in your hometown, like where you lived, right? And now with the rise of the internet and social media and all that, and there's tons good about all of that, but one of the drawbacks is that you are exposed to all of the bad in the world, and
it can become so overwhelming.
It does, it begins to feel like the whole world is a bad place, and it's not the case. And I think it even adds to some of what you talked about earlier with anxiety and fear and all those things. There's science around when the brain is fully formed and able to handle certain pieces of information in a healthy way. And I think to a large degree, social media and the internet, and particularly the cell phone, right, being a personal computer in our pocket, has exposed our kids to things at a much younger age 100%. Than probably they were ready. And I think if there was something, I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but if there was an opportunity for me to go back and redo something about our parenting journey, I think that would be one of the things I would take a really hard look at, about limiting, internet access, at least in the sense of, smartphones and things like that for our kids.
Yeah, I think that's true. I know for our kids, most all of them, if not all of them, maybe Noah's the only one, have kind of all got to a point at certain times on their journey of saying, I'm just going to go off social media. I'm not going to use my phone for games. I'm not going to, I don't want to waste time anymore in these spaces, right? Yeah. And so it's easy to just, when you feel alone, to just go into that deep dark hole of social media, and you just keep spiraling. It doesn't really actually help you feel more, with people. And so I think knowing the two of you and how you guys have invested in students and in relationships, even with games, and just trying to bring people in community in ways that, get people off social media. You guys are big board game fans. And
over under for the number of board games that you own, I'm going to set it at 150.
500.
Over or under?
Oh, it's so much more. There's at least 400.
It was funny when Josh was here the other day. He was like, I heard you have like 100 games. And I was like, a few more than that. Wow. First time really talking to him, I'm like, it's like, probably like 500. I say that like it's a low number.
It's like shelves on shelves on shelves on shelves.
You have some real work to do.
This is not a podcast on intervention for board games.
I'm glad.
But that might be the next episode.
Oh, Lord.
So next time you're invited back, you have to be worried.
Oh, boy.
Well, you said it, the work that you guys are doing to help build community among students, and Abby, all the things you're doing in the creative space with, and both of you are helping so much with this podcast, and so much that we're doing as a faith community. So I want to just publicly, say thank you to you for all the hard work that you guys are putting in, and proud of you guys. You're doing great things, and I really believe that the future ahead for both of you is really, really bright. And I think God's going to use Presence Church and each of you and so many others to build a beautiful community of people that help us stay connected and live life together in a way that's really meaningful. Mm-hmm. Final thought?
Abby?
I'm still working on this myself, but don't give up on people. Invite them into your house, your home, wherever, the park. In case you get it crazy. That's happened to us before. You really gotta
don't give your home address immediately.
Kind of, yeah.
Go with a buddy.
Yeah, be prepared. Get the Costco olive oil, anoint your house before and after. Do the whole thing. But it's real. It's real. But no, it's easy. Go to Target, buy a $20 game, and invite people over. It's that simple. You don't have to know the whole Bible. It's simple. The gospel's simple. Living life with people is simple. Don't ever give up on them.
That's good.
Woohoo.
What she said.
Ditto? Are you going with ditto?
I'm gonna go with ditto. I mean, yeah, like go to Target, buy a $20 game, invite me over. But yeah, like being in community is just so important. It was cool this past semester getting to host a group together at my house that I share with my mom, and just getting to, it was called Bites, Bible, and Board Games, right? And just getting to share food together. And it was a group of random people that a lot of them were from our other campuses. And so it was a cool, unique experience because there were some that we knew, but it was a nice time to get to eat together and then to get to center our week, right? And we met once a month, but center our week. That week we met on God, and then get to have some fun and just play some board games and see the fun competitive sides of people and the ones that are really into it, and just get to be together. And like, even though we only met 4 times through that semester, feeling so much closer with these people just because we were intentional about the time that we took with one another. So.
Yeah, that's good. And in the context of board games and coffee dates and lunches and, you know, just life lived together in community, conversations happen, meaningful conversations happen, spiritual conversations, real meaningful life happens in those environments. And grateful for you guys, grateful for those environments, and grateful that you're with us in starting this new church where we hope to create a lot more of those environments where we get to live in each other's space.
I'm super excited for what's to come and how God's going to use all of us.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, more late nights of
lots
of
no
people.
Late nights, early morning,
lots of people
early mornings,
around this
coffee,
table, and
lots of coffee,
barbecues.